Imagine the shock of a quiet evening shift at a small town cafe turned upside down by the arrival of one of the world's most iconic figures, Elon Musk. For Jada, a 28-year-old waitress, this chance encounter would not only cost her her job, but change her life in ways she never anticipated. The story of loyalty, unexpected kindness, and life-changing generosity is nothing short of incredible. In the heart of a quiet suburban neighborhood sat Poppy's Cafe, a warm and inviting spot where time seemed to stand still. Its soft amber glow spilled onto the sidewalk through wide windows, beckoning in a mix of regulars and the occasional curious passerby. For 28-year-old Jada, the cafe wasn't just a workplace. It was her sanctuary. She had been working there for years, finding comfort in its predictability and the sense of community it provided. Every day felt like a page out of the same well-worn book. The regulars, mostly retired locals, would drift in around the same time, settling into their usual spots with their usual orders. Some would linger over their coffee, swapping stories from their youth or debating the latest headlines. Others simply enjoyed the familiarity of being surrounded by neighbors and the gentle hum of life in motion. The smells of freshly brewed coffee and the faint sweetness of pies baking in the kitchen filled the air, creating an atmosphere that was both comforting and nostalgic. For Jada, this rhythm was soothing. Life hadn't always been kind to her, but at Poppy's, she felt at peace. Her coworkers were like a second family, and the patrons, even the grumpy ones, added color to her day. Jada took pride in her work, from brewing the perfect cup of coffee to offering a kind word or a listening ear to anyone who needed it. It wasn't glamorous, but it was fulfilling in its own way. That evening, Jada found herself manning the closing shift, a time she typically cherished. The hours between dinner and closing were slow, almost meditative. She moved methodically, wiping down counters, straightening chairs, and brewing fresh pots of coffee for the few customers who lingered. The muted chatter of the regulars mixed with the soft clinking of silverware as she prepared for the end of another uneventful day. But something was different that night. A strange, almost electric tension seemed to hum in the air, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Jada couldn't quite put her finger on it, but she brushed the feeling aside, chalking it up to fatigue. The minutes ticked by, and just as she started to lock up, the bell above the door jingled. Startled, Jada turned toward the entrance, expecting one of the regulars who had forgotten something. Instead, a tall figure stepped inside, his silhouette framed by the soft glow of the streetlights outside. For a moment, she froze. Her heart skipped a beat as the man moved into the light, revealing a face she had seen countless times on TV and social media. It was Elon Musk. Her world, once so predictable, was about to be turned upside down. This wasn't just another closing shift. It was the beginning of a story she would never forget. Jada's breath caught in her throat as she realized who had just walked through the door. Elon Musk, the billionaire innovator and one of the world's most recognized figures, was standing in the middle of Poppy's Cafe. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The low murmur of conversations came to a halt, and even the clinking of coffee cups against saucers stopped as heads turned to take in the unexpected sight. Elon Musk looked out of place in the cozy little cafe, dressed in a casual jacket and jeans that seemed almost too ordinary for someone of his stature. He didn't arrive with an entourage or bodyguards, just a tired yet purposeful air that suggested he had come here for a moment of quiet. His sharp eyes scanned the room briefly before he chose a small booth by the window, away from the other patrons. There was a hum of whispers as the regulars leaned into each other, sharing their disbelief. Jada felt her palms grow clammy. She had seen him countless times, on TV, in interviews, and in countless news stories about his ventures into electric cars, space travel, and artificial intelligence. But seeing him in person, sitting just a few feet away, was surreal. She couldn't help but admire his poise as he settled into his seat, gazing thoughtfully out of the window as though the world outside held the answer to some great mystery. Summoning her courage, Jada straightened her apron and approached his table. She told herself he was just another customer, but her heart was racing nonetheless. Forcing a smile, she greeted him. "Hi there. What can I get for you tonight?" Elon turned to her, his expression polite but distant. "Just a coffee, black," he said in a calm, low voice. Then, after a pause, he added, "And maybe a slice of whatever pie you have." Jada nodded quickly, grateful for the straightforward order. "Coming right up," she replied, trying to sound casual. As she walked back to the counter, she felt every pair of eyes in the cafe following her, their curiosity almost tangible. Some of the regulars began murmuring to each other, their voices just loud enough for her to catch snippets. "Is that really him?" one asked. "What's someone like him doing here?" another muttered. "Probably looking to buy up the whole block," grumbled old Frank, known for his loud opinions. Jada ignored the whispers and focused on preparing his coffee and slicing a piece of apple pie. She reminded herself to treat him like any other customer, even though her mind was buzzing with questions. What was Elon Musk doing here? In this unassuming little cafe in the middle of nowhere? Was he passing through, looking for inspiration? Or maybe just escaping the weight of his responsibilities for a brief moment? As she placed the coffee and pie in front of him, he looked up with a simple "thank you" and returned to gazing out the window. For Jada, the encounter was already extraordinary. But as the evening unfolded, she realized this was only the beginning of a night she would never forget. The quiet hum of the cafe didn't last long once Elon Musk settled into his booth. Whispers rippled through the room like a growing wave, each patron speculating about the man who had unexpectedly joined their little world. While some leaned into their curiosity with awe, others seemed less impressed. Among them was Frank, a retired local known for his gruff demeanor and unfiltered opinions. His voice had the habit of cutting through any room, and tonight was no exception. Frank had been a regular at Poppy's Cafe for years, always occupying the same corner seat where he would hold court over his coffee and grumble about the news of the day. When Elon Musk walked in, Frank's sharp eyes had immediately locked onto him, and his expression shifted from surprise to skepticism. For a while, he stayed put, nursing his coffee as his gaze flicked between Musk and his own thoughts. Jada noticed Frank's demeanor and felt a pang of unease. She had seen him get into heated debates before, often harmless, but always uncomfortable. Now, she couldn't shake the feeling that Frank was gearing up for something. Sure enough, after a few minutes, Frank set his mug down with a deliberate clink, pushed back his chair, and stood. The room went quiet as he made his way toward Elon Musk's table, his boots scuffing against the floor. Jada froze behind the counter, unsure whether to intervene or let things play out. "Excuse me," Frank said, his voice loud enough to catch everyone's attention. He stopped just short of Elon's table, crossing his arms over his chest. "Aren't you the guy who used to support OpenAI? Helped set it up, didn't you?" Elon looked up from his coffee, his expression calm but curious. "Yes," he replied evenly. "I was involved in its early days." Frank nodded, his face twisting into a look of scrutiny. "So, why'd you sue them? And now, from what I hear, you're making your own AI thing that's just like them. Isn't that a bit contradictory?" A hushed murmur swept through the cafe as the other patrons leaned in, eager to witness the exchange. Jada's heart raced. She had no idea what Elon might say, or how Frank might react, but she could feel the tension thickening with every second. Elon set his coffee cup down gently and leaned back in his chair, his expression measured. "I have concerns about the direction OpenAI is heading," his voice steady but firm. "I believe AI should be aligned with truth, not influenced by hidden motives." Frank snorted, clearly unimpressed. "Truth, huh? Sounds like corporate double talk to me." Before Jada could stop herself, she stepped forward. "Frank," she interjected, her voice firmer than she expected, "maybe you should give him a break. He's just here for coffee, not a debate." Frank turned to her, his eyes narrowing slightly, but after a moment he shrugged. "Fine," he grumbled, retreating back to his seat. The cafe gradually returned to its usual buzz, but the air felt charged. Elon glanced at Jada, offering a faint smile of gratitude. She returned to her work, her heart pounding. Little did she know, her small act of loyalty had been noticed, and it would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. As the tension from Frank's confrontation settled, the atmosphere in the cafe remained charged, like the hum of static after a lightning strike. Jada couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and apprehension as Frank returned to his seat, still muttering under his breath. She had stood up for Elon Musk, a man she admired from a distance, yet didn't know personally. and she could still feel the weight of the encounter in the curious stares from the other customers. Elon, meanwhile, seemed unfazed. He returned to his coffee and pie, his calm demeanor unbroken despite the interruption. But Jada noticed something in his expression, a subtle flicker of gratitude in the way he glanced her way before resuming his quiet contemplation. It was a small moment, but one that made her feel oddly proud. She hadn't done much, but she had chosen kindness and fairness over complacency. The rest of the evening unfolded with a strange sense of unease. While most of the patrons eventually returned to their conversations, a few continued to whisper and throw glances toward Elon's table. Jada kept herself busy behind the counter, sneaking glances at the clock, eager to finish her shift. But the reprieve was short-lived. As the cafe approached closing time, the owner, Mr. Grayson, arrived unexpectedly. A tall, stern man with a penchant for order, Mr. Grayson rarely showed up during evening shifts, preferring to leave the running of the cafe to his staff. Tonight, however, he seemed unusually agitated. "What's going on here?" he asked sharply, his eyes sweeping the room. It didn't take him long to spot Elon Musk, sitting quietly by the window. The sight of the high-profile guest seemed to unnerve him, and his gaze quickly shifted to Jada. "What's he doing here?" Mr. Grayson demanded, his voice low but firm. Jada hesitated, unsure how to respond. "He's just a customer," she said finally, trying to keep her voice steady. Mr. Grayson's eyes narrowed. "And you let Frank cause a scene?" "He wasn't causing a scene," Jada defended, heat rising in her cheeks. "I handled it." Mr. Grayson didn't seem convinced. He glanced back at Elon, who was finishing his pie, oblivious to the brewing storm. Turning back to Jada, he said coldly, "This kind of attention isn't good for business. I don't need customers like him, or the trouble that comes with them." Jada blinked, shocked by the remark. "Trouble?" she asked incredulously. "He's just sitting there, having coffee." But Mr. Grayson wasn't interested in explanations. "You've disrupted the atmosphere of this cafe," he snapped. "This isn't the kind of place for celebrities or controversies. Clean out your locker, Jada. Your shift is over for good." The words hit her like a punch. Fired? For what? Defending a customer? For doing her job? Jada's heart sank as she realized her loyalty to Elon, her simple act of fairness, had cost her everything. As she collected her belongings and left the cafe, she couldn't help but wonder if she had made the right choice. Little did she know, her actions had set something extraordinary in motion. Tomorrow would bring a surprise that would change her life forever. The next morning, Jada woke up with a heavy heart, still reeling from the night before. The abrupt dismissal from her job had left her shaken, unsure of how to proceed. The cafe had been her lifeline for years, the only constant in her life, and now it was gone. She spent the morning scrolling through job listings, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her. Her savings were minimal, and the thought of finding another job in such a small town was daunting. It was a quiet, rainy day, and she couldn't shake the feeling of hopelessness that lingered. Just as she was about to close her laptop and drown her worries in a cup of tea, her phone rang. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number, and for a moment, she hesitated. Who could it be? Probably a telemarketer or someone selling insurance. But then, something nudged her to answer. "Hello? Hi, is this Jada?" The voice on the other end asked. It was a smooth, professional tone, but something about it sounded vaguely familiar. "Yes, this is Jada. Who's calling?" She sat up straight, curiosity replacing the numbness she had been feeling. "This is Lauren, assistant to Mr. Elon Musk. I'm calling on behalf of Mr. Musk." The words hit Jada like a thunderclap. She felt her heart skip a beat, her mind racing to process what was happening. Musk's assistant? Why would she be calling her? I'm sorry, did you say Elon Musk? Jada stammered, not believing her ears. "Yes, Mr. Musk would like to personally thank you for your kind words and your bravery last night at Poppy's Cafe. He was very impressed with how you defended him, even in the face of criticism, and he'd like to offer you something in return." Jada could barely breathe as Lauren continued. "Mr. Musk believes in second chances and values integrity. He wanted me to pass on that he was moved by your loyalty, and as a token of his appreciation, he would like to make sure you're taken care of." Jada's pulse raced. "Taken care of? What do you mean?" Her voice barely above a whisper. "First," Lauren said, "Mr. Musk would like to offer you a position at one of his companies. He's interested in working with people who show the kind of resilience and character you demonstrated last night. It's not a typical job offer, but it's a unique opportunity. He thinks you have a lot of potential. Jada's mind whirled. This was unreal. A job with Elon Musk's company? Was she dreaming? Second, Lauren continued, Mr. Musk is offering you a financial gift that will secure your future. He's aware of your situation and wants to make sure you have the freedom to pursue your goals without the burden of financial hardship. This will give you the breathing room to decide what's next for you without worry. The phone call felt like it was happening in slow motion. Jada's breath hitched and her hands began to shake. The very man who had caused such a stir the night before, who had been the center of that tense confrontation, was now offering her an unimaginable gift. He hadn't just brushed her off or ignored her. He had noticed her, valued her, and wanted to help. Tears welled in Jada's eyes as she sat there in silence, overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. The weight of her doubts and fears seemed to lift, replaced by an unexpected surge of gratitude and disbelief. Mr. Musk said that he was impressed by your character, Lauren concluded. He believes you're someone who deserves a chance to make a difference, and he's excited to see where you'll go from here. We'll send over the details shortly, but he wanted you to know personally. Jada barely knew what to say. I don't know how to thank him. There's no need to thank him, Lauren replied kindly. Just know that this is his way of giving you a fresh start. As the call ended, Jada sat there in stunned silence, unable to fully process what had just happened. Her world had been turned upside down in the span of a single night, and now, in a twist of fate, it had been reshaped again by a gesture that was as profound as it was unexpected. She didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, Jada felt a sense of hope. The life she had known was gone, but it was clear now that this new chapter, one she had never imagined, was about to begin.